We're here with Yoon Ledin at the Vienna conference, and we're talking with you. You're with the Global Fund, the Director of Communications of the Global Fund. And I asked a question in the meeting here, the press conference, where you're anticipating a greater need for more money. There was an expression by the President Clinton this morning that we have to operate leaner and meaner and find a way to demonstrate that we are effectively using the funds, even more effectively. And I think you were going to help explain some of those safeguards or processes in place that would help us understand that, so that to demonstrate this is actually happening. Can you go on with that?
Sure. First of all, the Global Fund is a channel for money. So when the US, for example, who provides almost a third of the funding for the Global Fund, provides $1 to the Global Fund, that dollar in its entirety goes to programs in countries in Africa or Asia or Latin America or Central Eastern Europe. And it can do that because we have a fair amount of cash in the bank, and the interest of that cash covers all the operating expenses. So that's the first part. But the second thing is, we basically fund what countries are asking for. We're filling gaps in their own priorities, in their own strategies, in their own plans. And so all of this funding goes towards their building of their health system, but also their delivery of services. And what we do is that we first assess the proposal they come with, whether it's technically feasible. And that's a very narrow needle's eye they go through. So we're pretty confident that the proposals that are funded actually are of a quality that can lead to results. The second thing we do is to set up a very clear set of targets. Literally, the number of pills that goes into the number of mouths, or the number of bed nets that goes to the number of families that this funding should go to. We agree on those targets, we write it down in the contract, and then we disperse based on progress towards those goals. So that if the program is slow, the disbursement slows down. If they show that they can't show that they can actually handle this after all, the funding stops. If they accelerate and actually can exceed their targets, we will increase the funding, or we will increase the funding over time, and they will burn up the money more quickly, and they can ask for more money earlier than they had expected.
So you have a real-time process of watchfulness on the
exactly.
program.
We have a set, we disperse quarterly. We also constantly check on the cost of the services delivered. So we have now a very large database for all, or practically all transactions and all procurements of drugs, of bed nets for malaria, of a number of medical commodities, country by country, grant by grant, which is public and which can therefore be used as a reference to see price trends and to help in negotiations of drugs. So if one country gets drug A for a certain price, which is much cheaper than drug, another country gets the same drug, that country can go back to the producers and say, hey, why are you selling this more cheaply to these guys? We want the same price. And with this transparency, we're driving down prices. So there are a number of activities like this that makes us try to make this as lean and effective as possible. What we have done in the past 2 years, seeing that there is an increasing pressure on resources, is to go in for all proposals and request a 10% efficiency gain on all of these grants up front, so that we basically say, that's great, we will finance your 100 million, but we will ask you to find a way to deliver the same amount of services, but for 90 million, because we can use those extra 10 million for someone else who needs this money as much as you do. It's been tough for a number of countries to do this. We are very careful that that doesn't mean that the targets go down, or that some groups get disadvantaged. For example, if you had 100 million and you were planning to give 40 million to the civil society sector and 60 million to the government, you shouldn't cut 10 million from the civil society part of the grant. So we have checks and balances like that, but we feel that this is tightening the screws and making sure that things are more efficient, or as efficient as they possibly can be.
And do you have any enforcement possibilities for people that are doing, that you determine are doing illegal activities in any way, shape, or form?
Sure. I mean, as I said, we have the standard procedure is that we have quarterly, most often, disbursements against results, and they're quite a solid auditing function there. We have hired, we don't have staff in countries, that way we save money, but we do hire auditing companies to verify the results, both the books, the financial results, but also whether actual pills have ended up in actual mouths of people. So that's a second layer of safeguard. In addition, we have an inspector general who goes independently around and audits countries, indiscriminately. He is fairly tough, and whenever he finds any evidence or we don't even need solid evidence, we need significant indications that any money is either stolen or even misspent, not spent very effectively, we immediately suspend funding. And as opposed to a lot of other international funders, we announce that publicly, which makes this kind of naming and shaming has really led a lot of countries to think twice about.
Let the others know that this is happening. Yeah.
They know that if something goes wrong, their country will be publicly named as a country that actually has having trouble with its money. And we also ask for money being paid back. We are very firm on that money will not start flowing again unless money that is deemed stolen is actually paid back. And the people responsible for it are removed from any position of authority and often prosecuted if it's a criminal offense. That, of course, is balanced with the fact that we, in many countries, are responsible for paying for drugs that are life-saving for a number of people. So we do find we're not sort of inhuman in that sense, we are responsible. So we make sure that others, safe sources or safe handlers of this money, can then temporarily go in and ensure that this flow of drugs and life-saving commodities actually continues. But the country feels the pinch immediately.
The reason I ask these questions is because it's obvious to people that there are these things that are happening.
Naive. We are in 144 countries.
We see that happening in so many cases, so we just suspect that this, and I'm glad that you've explained it for the public to understand that you are doing every bit of the possibilities of ways to cover your tracks to make sure that this does not happen.
There's a challenge to this, which is, you say we all know it's happening and we would assume that it would be, but you hear about it very rarely. So for us at the Global Fund to actually announce every time we have a problem, means that we're more in the news when something goes wrong than when something goes right. We think it's very important that both the people who we're actually working for, the people on the ground, and the people who provide the money, the governments and individuals who provide the money to us, need to know that if they don't hear from the Global Fund, it's because things are going right. And they can trust that if something goes wrong, they will know it. That's not very common in development assistance, and we think we're on the right track, but it means that we take a rap once in a while.
Well, it might be good to, when you make that announcement of that problem, that you say, this is rare because this is what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, lots of people have done the right thing,
and we do find that we get a lot of negative press when this comes up, but at the same time we do find that our credibility and the trust in the Global Fund is actually improving by this tough policy, not decreasing.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your explaining that, and it's been very helpful. It was the first thing that popped to my mind when I was hearing that discussion this morning. Details.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Appreciate it.